Well, good morning. We're here this morning. We're talking Niagara, and you might notice something different. I've just got this message. Internet troubles, be here in 5. All right. So that's Dave. Internet troubles, be here in 5 minutes. We'll see where we go from there. Okay. I'm just going to get started anyway. Welcome to Talking Niagara this morning. And I hope Dave gets on. I really do. He should be with us, but we'll see. All right. Maybe one of you wants to actually come on. No, well, just message me and I'll give you the link if you want. So good morning there, Mike. Right, yeah, as you say, I'm without Dave. But anyway, I'm going to move forward. All right, so media experts have been selected to help modernize the CBC and Canada radio before the next election. Liberals are here looking at clearly winning that election. We were talking about the fact that we were talking a while back about the fact that Polyev doesn't like the CBC. He would like to dump it if he got in. Well, I don't agree with dumping it. And I think modernizing it is probably a good idea. But I have to actually look at the fact that they've got these panels to help. They're creating a panel to help form this. But basically, 7 multimedia experts have been selected to advise the Heritage Minister, Pascal Saint-Onge, as she renews Canada's public broadcaster. So public consultations on CBC's mandate have already been conducted with the general public. Didn't ask me, did they? Didn't ask me. Always typical. They didn't ask me. Hey, did not ask. Hey, and all it takes is a phone call. Let me. Hey Peter, what do you think about this? I had to give them an earful or 2 or 3. But hey, what can I say? What can I say? Because it's a problem. There's clearly a problem we have with CBC, and I'd like to see them dump news for one. Get on and look at developing fictional television. Fictional television for Canadian culture, and forget about news, forget about documentaries right now. Just do fiction, right? Just do fiction, and let's catch up on documentaries and news in the future, because it's clear at the moment that CBC has an issue with that one, and that's a radical thought. I know that's completely different, completely out there, but I have to be different every once in a while. I'm just telling Dave that we're live now, right? So and we're waiting for him. All right, yeah. So the panel for this shake-up of CBC is going to include Marie-Philippe Bouchard, who's the CEO of TV5 Quebec, Canada. Got mixed feelings about this one. After all, they're a bit of a competitor, but again, sometimes you learn from a competitor. What do you? How much of the game will a competitor give away? I suspect not as much as they would. They'd be very, very, very limited in what they say, because every slip up that CBC makes means that TV5 could potentially make some gains, right? So, where I'm coming from. There's kind of 2 sides to that story, always, right? Dave, no, he's got problems with Angela. Dave has got problems with the internet. All right. Time for that bucket of water. Yeah. Right. So, as I was just saying, Marie-Philippe Bouchard, CEO of TV5 Quebec, Canada, being on this panel. As I said, I have mixed feelings about it. So it's somebody in the industry, it's somebody who knows something or two about television, but are they therefore are they therefore a problem because of them being a competitor? There we go, Dave.
Yeah, my modem's down or something. I have to use my phone today, which means I can't refer to the articles as we're going along.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I've been talking about this, generally talking about this set of the media experts selected to help modernize CBC and Radio Canada before the next election. Right?
Yeah, I can't refer to the article now, but if you notice that the feds are going around and doing something about everything the conservatives have complained about.
Yeah.
They have discovered that the average Canadian is not pleased with CBC, so they're running around with but they've known this all along. But now it's election year, and that happens to be an election issue, so they're jumping on board as fast as they can. Now,
I'm opposed to, we know that Polyev wants to close the CBC or wants to dramatically reform it. And I agree with that it needs reform. I don't agree with closing it. I'm not so sure that necessarily some of these people that they picked are the right ones. I was just talking about Marie-Philippe Bouchard, who's the CEO of TV5. My challenge about that is, okay, this is a person who's obviously in the television industry already, who knows something about TV, but they're a competitor. So they actually may not give full advice about, they won't give advice that would be about how to really develop CBC as a competitor to TV5.
well, what they're doing is they're getting a bunch of flakes to help reflectify CBC in a bit, and like
Yeah.
I'm using those words on purpose. Unfortunately, the CBC is not appealing. CBC, and we don't expect it to be the number one winner, but we don't want it to be as bad as it is.
Yeah,
And
exactly.
that's the main problem here. Is the CBC is not very appealing. It is heavily bureaucratized. At least that's the impression we get when they have these meetings where they bring the CBC people up. What we find is the CBC has dumped a ton of their employees and have not performed very well. Then they ask for bonuses, so the people who are running it get even bigger bonuses.
Yeah.
They get bonuses while they've dumped a whole lot of employees. Now, how does that fit? How does that fit?
Yeah, and that's a problem. I'm not sure that actually any of these people they've selected are actually going to help that situation, right? Because Jesse Wenty, who's the chair of the Canada Council for the Arts, founding executive director of Indigenous Screen Office, that sounds so arty, and I don't know the person. That sounds so arty-farty that I'm wondering, hey, does that represent real Canadian people and what the needs of real Canadian people are? I actually said I already put one proposal here this morning, Dave, about how to move forward with this. You'll probably disagree, but hey, stop documentaries, stop the news, get on with fictional television and do that and learn how to do that for a while. Tell stories that are important to Canadian people, then get back to documentaries and news later on.
No, the documentaries and the news are important. I think what they should do is just get down to brass tacks. Do the news, right? Stay away from opinion.
Yeah.
They can subcontract people to opinion, but those opinion people will not be employees of CBC. Like you can get a Rex Murphy kind of guy, and you can bring him in,
Yeah.
and he'd be an independent, and you'd hire him. The other thing is their attitudes. They're kind of woke attitudes, and I hate to use that word because it's being overused. We saw what happened to Wendy Mesley, right, when she was referring to a comment by a rapper, used the N-word because that was what the rapper used while she was just briefing her staff. Her staff turned on her and she had to retire. And that is because the CBC didn't have the backbone to stand up for one of their own. And it was an indication that they had a way and means by which they were going to interpret the news. The problem with the CBC is it's going to interpret the news in ways that it feels that we should know it, not the way it should, that is in reality. And I do remember that documentary where they said that where they said that Thunder Bay was the most racist city in Ontario because of what was happening with the Indigenous people. But during that whole thing, they didn't talk to anyone that was there. They didn't talk to the people who lived in Thunder Bay and why the Indigenous people had such a bad rap. And I knew at the time, my son, shortly before that, my son had been living up there, and he told me all about it. I mean, the good and the bad. He got caught on reserve land by accident. They were having a bunch of university kids were having a party, and they had to stray on university land. They got kind of busted, and then they had to go to the hot lodge or whatever, and then they had to be educated on respect and all that. Well, meanwhile, if they'd known it was Indigenous land, they wouldn't be there in the first place. But in the meantime, in the city itself, you had knife-wielding Indigenous people, Indigenous prostitutes, lots of drug abuse, and ruined houses where Indigenous people lived. And yet you didn't get any of that on the documentary because the CBC doesn't want you to know that part of it, because they feel it's their mandate not to tell the truth, but to tell you what should be the truth.
That's what I say. Get them out of the news and documentary industry for a while. But then again, I got problems with this entire panel. This entire panel includes a CEO from TV5, a chair of the Canada Council for Arts, managing director of Pink Triangle Press, never heard of them, CEO and editor-chief of The Logic, an independent media startup, an associate professor of communication and journalism at the University of Southern California. Why somebody who's not in the country? That's another question. Executive director of DigiBC, and a professor of University of Quebec in Montreal. Where's the normal people on this panel?
Well, that's why this isn't going to work.
Yeah.
And how many business people do you have there with the business acumen to tell you why you're not, and where is your marketing people? Where are they? And who are and so you've just, what happens and what bothers me the most, one of the things that bothers me the most here is when the CBC is asked how come they're doing so poorly, they just say, well, news throughout the world is doing poorly now, which is true. Like your CTVs and your globals and all that are all doing poorly. So they give the global approach. It's happening everywhere, so it's no problem of ours because it's the problem everyone else has had. But the real problem is, even when they do have good news, like with Peter Mansbridge, he was fairly popular. They were still running up third. Why?
Well, and actually, it's not just news. I'm saying they've not even got other content rights. They're not doing content that is relevant to Canadians.
Yeah, and it should be Canadian, and if it has to take a loss because it concentrates on Canadian stuff, that's good. But they always overdo things. Like, for instance, they had decided that there wasn't enough Indigenous news. Indigenous people did not have a presence, and they were right. It didn't have enough of a presence at all. But their solution was to dump it down your throat all at once, a lot, and so I don't get it. Like, they overdo certain things. I don't really think. I think what they have to do is get rid of they have an idea of how the news should be and how we should listen to it, and that's always a dangerous thing.
Yeah.
If you and they probably have, they're you got to have X amount of black people, X amount of Indigenous people, X amount of whatever, gay people. One time I was listening to CBC, and there was two gay, one man and female, or male and female, gay hosts. They were co-hosting for some reason, and they were out gaying each other, like kind of competing with each other, telling the other one they're not as gay as I am, kind of thing. Yeah, I really am interested in that. Really, that's interesting to me.
Get on with the next program, please.
Yeah, and the people and the opinions they choose, they don't often get good conservative opinions. They do a little bit better now, but for a while there, they were always leaning towards the CBC. So that tells you the kind of staff and people they hire are the ones that feel that their certain slant on the interpretation of the news is the right thing, instead of just sticking with the facts. And where are we going to get that anymore? Like, if you can't get it from your national provider, something that is like just stone cold facts and objective reality, or as much of objective truth as you can get, where are you going to get it? If you don't go to get it from the state-run news station.
Yeah. Well, okay. Here's another thing. CBC President Catherine Tate is calling for long-term financial structure for the public broadcaster, like the multi-year funding agreement through a charter similar to the BBC in Britain. No way, no how is my view upon that. We don't want licenses here in Canada. We don't need television licenses.
That will never happen here. That will never happen here, because as soon as they do that, you might as well torpedo CBC completely, because the rejection would be total. What she's talking about is long-term commitment, money wise. So they basically, what she's doing is trying to protect her job. She sees what's happening out there, and wants long-term commitment to what they're doing currently. That would never, like, where is their business plan? All they're saying is like, globally, everything, globally, all television and media network is falling down, but we want more money to continue that. And that's going to save it.
Yeah, that's
it's not. It's just, what it's going to do is if you get long-term commitment and money, that means you don't have to lay off as many people, because you're going to get the money no matter how badly you're losing money. Like, they're losing a lot of money. I think 25 million so far just this year. And that's after all the
layoffs. By the way, Dave, Angela said it was a time for a bucket of water for you.
A bucket of water? Why? to wake up?
Because you were late to the show.
Oh, right? Well, Angela, this time it wasn't my fault. I'm on my phone right now. I rely on the internet so that I can have the articles there present with me, but my household internet is down, and that was the delay. And That's just not my excuse. I'm sticking with it. It really is the real thing.
Right. Mike says censorship is easier. Yeah, well, let's censor the CBC out of existence. No, I didn't say that. Right. Robert says
censorship, this kind of censorship, the sort of soft censorship that the CBC has, is the kind of thing I'm worried about. Like, because they're not going to tell you the truth about an indigenous community. They aren't. They're going to tell you that everybody's very happy until some kid starts to hang themselves, like they did up in Davis Inlet, where kids were committing suicide because of the desperate straits of their life. And then they'll go in and then they'll blame colonialism and stuff like that. They will not get to the root of the problem. What is the problem? The problem is that these are isolated people with no chance in life. And that's why these young people are committing suicide. And how do you fix it?
Yeah.
No, they go around and talk about colonialism and they talk about this and that. Well, it's not going to solve the problem.
It's got nothing to do with colonialism. It's got to do with modern society as it is right now. And it's not just Indigenous youth. There's a lot of youth suicide that's out there. I was reading an article the other day about youth suicide generally, and it's up compared to 10 years ago. This is up. You know,
well, down here it'll be because of mental health. Up there in indigenous lands, it will be mental health caused by colonialism. So that they'll play that game, and so where is the analysis that the mental health of somebody on a reservation is anything different from somebody who's not on the reservation, a white person, let's say, and the white kid is depressed and suicidal, and the kid on the reservation is suicidal. But one's mental distress comes from colonialism, and the other one's just comes from the stresses and strains of modern life.
Yeah,
that's the kind of thing that when you look at the CBC, they tend to do that kind of thing. I think that to get down to what the truth is always a problem. It is interpretation of facts that bother me with the CBC.
Yeah. All right. Angela says technology is marvelous when it works, referring to your internet issues, right?
Yeah, I feel like I'm in the Stone Age already over here.
Right. And basically, and then Mike Cushman says, so hard to find a media not opinionated. Are there any unbiased news stations? And the answer to that, and Mike, as you well know, is no. There are no unbiased news stations.
There isn't, and that's why you have to go to the buffet. So you have the buffet there of all your different news stations, and you go through and you pick this and this and this. But not even I usually stay away from hard left or hard right news stations. I mean, I go as far as to watch Democracy Now!, which is quite a bit to the left, and the YouTube analyzes me, I guess, and it always gives me the leftist approach. I think is that's a good indication to me that it thinks that I'm left of center, and probably that's why it gives me those offerings. The problem is you're going to get your Fox, but sometimes on Fox, as goofy and as unreliable a news source it is, its interpretations, but it may report on something that will not be reported by the mainstream because it's too embarrassing or to the left. So sometimes you have to go, like I say, on the buffet of news choices and pick and choose. There's a lot of very good stuff on YouTube through the internet where I find most of my news now. I would choose, like, there's a couple of network stuff, like perhaps I would watch MSNBC to see what the American take is and know that it is, you're not going to get complete pictures of what's happening in Gaza. They're going to go soft on Israel, even though it may not sound like they're going on soft on Israel, but they've already have done a lot of filter work there. The
Okay.
and then you go to a national carrier in Canada. I go for global national. It's the only one that doesn't annoy me as much as the other two. And then you pick apart each one of the news stories. Like I'll read the Globe and Mail. I stay away from the Star because it's too far to the left and too opinionated. But you try to find something that's not so opinionated and down the middle.
Okay. Angela says there are limits to how long somebody indigenous can blame colonialism for their problems.
Yeah, and it's same thing as blacks blaming slavery for their problems. It's
all right.
Yeah, like you have to address what's happening in the here and now.
All right, I'm going to move this on. We spent way too much time on that issue, right?
Well, it's because CBC is such annoys everybody. How much it costs and how poor programming it is.
Yeah, exactly. It does. And honestly, I haven't watched I've hardly ever watched CBC television since coming to Canada. The quality is very poor.
I used to watch it all the time, and CBC radio used to be my go-to. I used to go to that. I have two things on my car radio. The first two numbers or buttons were NPR and CBC. If I had those two, I knew what was going on in the world fairly comfortably, but
Okay.
not now.
All right, let's move on. Lifetime ban, license suspension for car thieves could be coming to Ontario. Essentially, Transportation Minister Prabmeet Sakaria, along with Solicitor General Michael Kersner, teased proposed new legislation and they're looking at suspending driver's licenses for people found guilty of auto theft offences, with legislation tabled next week. And basically, first offence could see a 10-year driving suspension, second offence 15 years, and third offence lifetime.
Yes, it could be lifetime. So 10, 15, and life, it could be life. And I'm sure that it's going to be up to the judge in every situation. But do you see the difference here? We have had a very high upswing in crime. Now the liberals will tell you, the liberal federal will say, well, there's crime on the rise everywhere in the world. We're no different. But we do have a federal government that's gone soft on crime, and I don't mean that derisively. I mean they've gone soft on crime as an experiment, because a lot of people have always said that if you come down on criminals right away, you're going to ensure that they stay criminals. You should give them a break and you should go easy on them at first. Well, we've done that here in Canada quite a bit. We've tried to sort of be very a little bit more easy on criminals than in the past, but it's not working. And it's not working because we've had all kinds of car thefts. That is a big deal now. And the Ontario government has taken a different approach than the federal government. They're going to come down hard on the criminals, whereas the feds want to go soft on them. But the Ontario government is going to go down very hard. This is a deterrent. And I think, unfortunately, we're human beings and we need deterrence.
Well, yes, but let me ask one question about this. What about robberies from local small businesses? They've been on the rise for the last 10 years. We need something done about that.
Maybe so, but that's a different issue. Right now, the flurry has been the car thefts. And here's another crime, upswing in crime, that I don't understand why the powers that be did not see this coming. we knew how easy it was for the indigenous people to criminals to steal trucks and cars and take them to the reserve and chop them, or just put a different serial number on them and then sell them. So that was one way in which illegal cars, particularly trucks, got sent overseas, I presume, because they got stolen and gone to the reserve where the police couldn't get them as easily, and there they were kind of converted into another kind of vehicle, not converted to another kind of vehicle, but the legalities of it were changed, or whatever they had to do to sell it. Now my question is, well, you can see how easily that was done. And you know that there is a huge demand for cars all over the world. And we know that we're kind of soft on crime and we don't have the protections here that we should have. These cars that are stolen go all over the world, and the demand for them is huge all over the world. So they could steal a car, put them in a C-can. They know the likelihood of those C-cans being checked is very low, because as we found out, a fellow tracked his own truck to a C-can in Montreal and they couldn't go in and get it. Why couldn't they go in and get it? They know that it's there. I could track it with my GPS. Here it is. Here's my truck right here. But they weren't going to go in and get it for them because it's too expensive, too awkward. So the thieves know that.
Yeah. And like many cars, my car's got auto, will tell you anywhere on the globe where it is.
Yes, and if it does that, and you find it's down in one of the islands, or in Guyana, or in West Africa, what if it's in Senegal? What if it's in Sierra Leone? What are you going to do? That means your insurance is going to go up too. So why the government did not see this coming, and why was it got to the point where it's so egregious that they have to have very, very tough deterrence? Now, seriously, some stupid young guy's been stealing cars. He's making a bit of a fortune. Now, if he steals one, he's going to find that he's going to be 10 years without a car. Now, how is he going to get to work?
Yeah.
How is he going to get at work if he, he's done something stupid, and now he's got a jail sentence for 10 years, basically a jail sentence that says you got to find a bus to go to work if you do get a real good job. Now, if he does get a real good job, then how is he going to get there? He's going to have to appeal his sentence, and I'm sure there's going to be latitude here if a guy settles down and gets a good job.
It depends on how they write the law, because if they write the law like the demerit system, if you get ticketed with an offense that has 3 demerit points, I can negotiate your fine down, but I can't remove the demerit points.
Okay. Yeah, you can't. But look, so here we have, I'm giving you both sides of this argument. If you come down hard on crime, so if you bust a guy who steals a car and you decide to give him a 10-year loss of his license right away, you're pushing him back into crime in a sense.
Well, you are, because I was just going to say that, because, hey, so what? You've just banned me for 10 years. That's not going to stop me going out and stealing another car.
But what it doesn't say in this is that there has to be some sort of jail time associated with it too. So you might go to jail for 2 years and find your license revoked for 10 years. And then if you get back, so the jail time, I think, is an important part of this. I think that's the real deterrent, because let's face it, if you're a criminal and you make a lot of money stealing cars, who cares if you got a license or not?
Yeah, exactly my point. Because the thing is, if you can drive that car, you might get caught, you might get a 2-year prison sentence, and you might lose your license for 10 years. But hey, you just get straight back into the next car that you steal, and this time you get lucky, you don't get caught.
Now, all in all, I agree with the ban of the license. I know it's going to be up to the judge, and he's going to take every situation
I also
a little bit. If he has a first time offender, he may go easy with him, just ban his license for a year, and then if he sees him come again across his desk within that year, then he can stiffen that penalty and start throwing him in jail. But you do have to have a deterrent effect, because if you do not have a deterrent, if a guy's able to make bail and then go out and continue doing what he's doing and feels that he's had a bit of inconvenience, he's had to go to court and his lawyers had to make bail for him, what is the point? Unfortunately, deterrents are the cornerstone of law. If you drink and drive and you get caught, you're going to get it, and that keeps a lot of people sober when they drive.
There, I'm going to actually say, hey, you drink and drive. Let's put the same sentence in for this, because we're too light on drink driving. First offense, a 10-year ban for drunk driving. All right. Second offense, a 15-year ban for drunk driving. Third offense, lifetime ban for drunk driving. We got too many people with drunk driving who would just, give them their license back in a year. No, let's stop doing that. Drunk drivers need to be banned.
Yeah, well, see, the deterrent effect is perhaps not strong enough with drinking and driving and drug related.
I'm sorry. You drink drive, you cause somebody's death. That's a life sentence.
Yes, yeah. But if somebody gets pulled over and he's been partying that night and he blows over, yeah, his license being suspended and his insurance going through the roof is usually deterrent enough for that first time offender. But the other offenders, the second, third time offenders, and those, yeah, they need jail time and they need their license suspended for a long period of time.
License away from them. Absolutely take their license away from them. It's absolutely ridiculous that we have people, we have drunk drivers who are just driving around. They take their one year ban and they're back at it again in a year's time. No.
You know what fixed me with drinking and driving? Of course, I came from an era when you were drinking and driving all the time, and if the cops pulled you over, they picked the most sober guy in the car and made him drive, right? And told you to go straight home and get your kids, your friends back home, and then you go straight home. I mean, I was stopped a couple times. I've been in cars where that would happen. It's happened to me. The cop pulled me on. I remember right on Valley one time. And he pulls me over and says, "Oh yeah, man, you guys have been drinking." He says, "Now you take these guys home and then you go straight home. All right. And meanwhile, here's a ticket for going through that stoplight or stop sign back there." So that's the kind of thing that happened. Now, what stopped me from drinking and driving was the realization that, like, of course, I was like every young man thinking, well, if I get in an accident because I'm drunk, that's my own business. But I can drive well when I'm drinking. What stopped me from drinking and driving was the realization that I could kill somebody else. That's the thing that got to me. I thought of children. I thought of killing children in a car or anybody in a car, but particularly children. And it gave me such a fright. Yeah. And I'm thinking to myself, no, I couldn't live with that. I would not be able to live with that.
What you're saying. Okay, got a few comments for you. Mike Cushman, tougher deterrence on stealing a car than committing murder with a car. By drinking and driving, you get, by committing murder with a car by drinking and driving, you get house arrest for killing somebody drinking and driving. Yeah, and that's exactly what we just been talking about. Absolutely.
Are you sure? Are you sure about that? Because that's criminal negligence, isn't it? It gets into criminal negligence, drinking and driving. Doesn't that? I think that carries jail time, doesn't it?
Not tough. The sentences on drunk driving are not tough enough, in my view. 100% agree with that. Dave, Angela says, Dave, they will have to take an Uber like I have to and spend a king's ransom to get around.
Yes, and there's a good point right there. And I remember when I took my son to the driver's when he had a book for his driver's test. There were guys in there, young men in there, trying to get their license back after it's being suspended for a year, and they had to tell them how much they had to make sure that they could get insurance, and their insurance was insane. Like it was like $1,500 a month or something like that for some of these guys, but they had to drive. And so I guess mom and dad is putting up the funds, but I remember overhearing them, and of course, they're all young men. I'm sure there's plenty of drunk ladies driving around out there, but most of these guys were young men. They've been caught drinking and driving, and they were able to be reinstated now that a year was up or whatever it was, but their insurance was killer.
Well, Mike's got another solution here. Pull their immigration papers and deport them.
Well, how's Angela going to get to work if there's no Uber drivers?
Yeah. Okay. Let's move on. Quebec Superior Court judge questioned lawyers representing McGill University in their request for an injunction to take down the pro-Palestinian encampment on the school's downtown campus.
I love this judge. And there was a guy, and I have to tell, unfortunately, I don't have the papers here. I wrote it all about. There is independent Jewish voices are as part of this, and independent Jewish voices were part of the Palestinian encampment. They were on the side of the Palestinians, and this goes overlooked, particularly in the States. How many young Jewish organizers are going? They only focus on the ones that attack the Palestinians or make it as if the Palestinian encampments are anti-Semitic. This Silverstein, I think, was the lawyer for the independent Jewish voices. These were young people, as brave can be. They're a part of the Palestinian movement there in McGill, and they made a very good case that McGill wants the people off the campus, say they're making a fortification, and the judge, thank you, judge, said at this particular time, there is no proof that your rights are being infringed upon by their demonstration. They have used the grounds. That is true. Those grounds are yours by law, but they are not impeding the regular business of the university. And that was the basis of the university's claim. That's our land. They're on it, and they've made an encampment, and we want them to go. That's a very inconvenient thing for us. Now, the judge said the inconvenience has nothing to there is no inconvenience in the operations of the university. It's not stopping people from doing anything. It is there's an encampment there, and your case is not made. And so there was a couple of different lawyers, and one of them was Silverstein, supporting independent Jewish voices. And I take my cap off to independent Jewish voices, how brave they are.
Yeah, Max Silverman, the lawyer representing independent Jewish voices. Yeah. Okay.
I don't have the article here and can't see it.
Yeah. McGill cited fierce verbal exchanges between protesters and counter-protesters, possible fire code breaches, and barrels what could be considered as human waste as being a reason for taking down the scene. I can't see that myself. And I'm, hey, if I'm a protester there, I'm heading, from and going to school at McGill, I'm heading off to the bathroom if I need to go to the bathroom, right?
Sure. Why not? Yeah. That's not still a public building, and you're still a university student. So that's where you're going to be going. And for now, I can see in time the judge will have to go towards McGill because it is their property and all that. But in the meantime, we have the right to protest. And this is a protest that and look, it involves a significant Jewish voice, the independent Jewish voice, young people who are looking for justice. They're not looking anywhere else. They're looking for justice and truth. And these are mischaracterized. A lot of these campuses are mischaracterized throughout North America as anti-Semitic demonstrations and pro-Hamas, pro-terrorist. No, by and large, they are protests against the university supporting those industries that make bombs and things like that and supply Israel's war effort in Gaza. It's to divest. They're pushing to divest in Israel's sort of apartheid system in the West Bank and in particular this war that's going on in Gaza.
Yeah. Well, yeah, and exactly that. This whole question about what the West is doing is actually has been the focus of all of these demonstrations across North America. It's not about what's happening in Gaza. It's about stopping the support for the war back here.
Yeah, it's to support it financially and militarily. You know what it is a call to stop with the universities, whatever stocks or whatever I don't know how they support the war effort indirectly through whatever stocks they may hold or whatever, but to ask them to divest in that so that they can draw attention to the fact that there's lots of people making money out of the war here. And it is a more immoral war. It is there are strong elements of genocide and revenge in this war that cannot be denied. And there's, I don't know. And to have people from every group, all over the world. Like when you go to the university campuses in the United States or Canada or anywhere else, it's people from all over the world that are on those. And it's not an anti-Jewish thing. It's not an anti-Semitic thing. It is a pro-Israel, a pro-Palestinian freedom thing. And anti-war. Well, and I think this is the problem that the U.S. is having right now is they have a blinders on and will support Israel no matter what they'll do.
Yeah,
like I said in a previous program, Ronald Reagan, who was as right wing as you could get, dressed down Sharon for his actions in Lebanon back when Reagan was president, and called Sharon's actions in Lebanon a Holocaust.
Yeah,
but you can't get anyone to stand up to Israel anymore because of the powerful lobby.
Yeah. Oh, well, okay. So I'll go over to some comments in a second, but Max Silverman, a lawyer representing independent Jewish voices, as you said it's not occupying chemistry lab. It's not occupying the place where you get lunch. It's occupying a rather empty field. In other words, it's actually the outside area, the common area where people just walk about when they're going from place to place in campus, and so not in anybody's way, not getting in the way. So that's part of the argument about the reason why these need to be allowed to continue, because they're not getting in anybody's way.
No, they're not. And thank you very much, Mr. Silverman, and thank you for a receptive judge. I think the judge is judging correctly on this, and he's not taking a side. He's judging it as when one says that you're on my property, you got to get off, and the judge sees that the students have the perfect right to demonstrate. That's part of our democratic process, and he understands that yes, they are on private land, but they are not impeding the progress. Just like Mr. Silverman said there, and not impeding the progress or the functioning of the school, I think that's a very strong argument. And what's McGill doing, complaining about the demonstrators anyway? They should be accommodating to a certain point, making rules and asking them to comply to certain rules to make sure they do not interfere with the other students.
Yeah.
To help accommodate a demonstration that doesn't impede other students, because what you don't want to do is impede the students. You want to impede the ability of McGill to support whatever industries or the government of Israel and its perpetuation of that war.
Yeah, okay. Angela's saying encampments don't prevent students from getting to class, people from working at the university, nor do they present a disruption to the wider community. Exactly. And that's exactly the point about this, is that demonstrations can go on. They're on a piece of common land. Let them get on with it. And she continues, yes, many of the pro-Palestinian protesters are Jewish. There are even Jewish groups that fight to support the Palestinians. Absolutely. And
yes.
Further, she's saying there are also major protest groups in Israel itself that want to get out of the war.
Yes, and of course we're going to find very right-wing Israelis that will come down and attack the encampments, as we've seen in the U.S. We'll have counter demonstrators, which is their perfect right to counter demonstrate as long as they don't get violent. That would be in support of Israel. That's their perfect right. And but the whole idea that these demonstrators are anti-Semites and Hamas supporting, there are going to be a few nutcases. There are, like, somebody raising the Hamas flag and celebrating October 7th. That's like the one nutcase in Ottawa that had the Confederate flag. There is always going to be a nutter in there. There's always somebody that's going to be dumb. There probably is anti-Semites among some of the demonstrations, although I really can't see it, because anti-Semitism doesn't really make a whole lot of sense when you talk about what Israel is doing in the Middle East. I mean, it just doesn't fit, like the anti-Semitism and the political wherewithal. But there's always a nutcase out there. By and large, this is not an anti-Semitic thing, and it's an anti-Israeli thing. It's an anti-war thing. It's an anti-Smotrich or a Netanyahu thing. These hard right-wing, nearly fascist guys. So I think the judge here has made a very good decision. He hasn't accepted the arguments that McGill has made about their property. He's looked at to see, he's made a point of saying you haven't proven that this demonstration is inconveniencing the day-to-day operations of the university. And because that's the only way you could break down a demonstration like that, if the demonstrators are impeding the rights of someone else.
And actually, that's exactly the point that Angela Brown makes. The convoy was different. The convoy in Ottawa, she believes that was different because it was disrupting the people of Ottawa.
Yes, it was. But then they had rules. They started having rules among themselves that the horn blasts that were bothering everybody, they would only do them during a 1-2 hour period, and they limited that. They had they had a code of conduct among the demonstrators. That's why you didn't get a whole lot of windows broken or a lot of damage. You got a lot of noise and a lot of people collected, but they had a code of conduct. Tamara Leach came up with a code of conduct that the truckers were supposed to follow. So it was, even though they really did interfere with the livelihoods of those people in and around downtown, it's not entirely their fault because they were supposed to have arrangements for encampment outside the city where a lot of the truckers did encamp and then come into the town. Yeah, but I think the convoy lasted at least 3 weeks, didn't it?
Yeah. Well, convoy was there for too long, in my opinion. You know, I get the Saturday, I get the Sunday, get lost on the Monday.
Yeah, they had the year before they had one where the truckers just drove through town, basically.
Yeah,
drove through town and blasted their horns. And that was a year prior to that. And
slow rolling motion. Yeah, so going at 5 miles an hour through town, go burp, 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 or whatever you know.
But remember, demonstrations are usually a part of the desperation. You don't demonstrate to that degree unless you're very desperate. A lot of the truckers and all the other people that were there lost time and money off of work because they were there for what they believed in. Now it really didn't manifest itself as well as it could have, but there was at least five different segments of that demonstration. And the bottom line was that half of Canadians were very upset with the federal government, not just on vaccines, but just about everything.
Yeah, absolutely. Of course, I understand. Yeah, I understand that. But it's a different character to these. And if you want to ignore these demonstrations at McGill and just, and just turn a blind eye to them, feel free. Feel free to do that. You could characterize them as a small, insignificant protest on a university campus far, far away.
I think that look, I really doff my cap to people who are going there from all different nations. They do, because all different nations are included in campuses throughout North America. They're going out there because they see injustice being done. They see the Western governments turning a cold eye, giving only minor lip services to the atrocities that are happening right now. And this is unsustainable. And it's people like this who are bringing attention to it, because that's one of the most ignorant sources of ignorance in North America, is what has gone on in Israel with Zionism and all the other stuff that we're not aware of, because Israel is supposed to be this shining light of a democracy in the Middle East, and the United States continually supporting it, like with blinders on. This is the kind of thing. This is 1968 all over again. The injustice of the Indochina War, Vietnam, Cambodia.
I'm going to disagree with you. In some respects, it's 1968 all over again, but there's no music, man. They can't sing. No protest music. Hey, where's Bob Dylan? There isn't one.
Well, remember, we don't have the exploded demographic as we did back then. Back then, we had a exploded demographic of young people. It was an enormous. That demographic was much larger than any of the other demographics of the time. That has something to do with it.
Yeah, Angela supports an encampment at Brock.
Yes. In any case, look, I got to go now. I've got things to do, but so I'll have to say goodbye right now. So without further ado, I bid you adieu, and let's pray for peace.
Yeah, absolutely.
Thanks everybody for commenting and being part of our show.